The campfire crackled, casting warm light that danced on the faces of Lisa, Jake, and Maria, who were gathered around it. The flames flickered and swayed, creating shadows that seemed to come alive in the dense, dark forest surrounding them. The air was filled with the scent of burning wood and the occasional pop and hiss of the fire, adding to the enchanting atmosphere of the night. They laughed and shared stories, enjoying the cozy night out in the wilderness. The camaraderie among them was palpable, each tale bringing them closer together. They spoke of past adventures, shared dreams, and the simple joys of life, their voices mingling with the sounds of the forest. The night was perfect, a serene escape from the hustle and bustle of their daily lives. It was Lisa's first time camping, and her excitement was palpable amidst the big, mysterious woods. She had always dreamed of experiencing the great outdoors, and now, surrounded by her closest friends, she felt a sense of wonder and exhilaration. The towering trees, the star-studded sky, and the symphony of nocturnal creatures created a magical backdrop for their adventure. Suddenly, Maria's voice cut through the laughter. "Tell us a scary story, Jake." Her eyes sparkled with mischief, and the others eagerly leaned in, anticipating the thrill of a good ghost story. The firelight cast eerie shadows on their faces, heightening the sense of suspense and excitement. Jake, always ready to thrill, began a tale about a ghost haunting these very woods. His voice took on a dramatic tone, and the flickering flames seemed to dance in rhythm with his words. He spoke of a restless spirit, a tragic past, and unexplained phenomena that had plagued campers for generations. The story was so vivid that it felt as if the ghost could appear at any moment. As the story unfolded, Lisa felt a shiver run down her spine, and the once inviting woods seemed ominous. The rustling leaves and distant hoots of owls took on a more sinister tone, and she couldn't help but glance over her shoulder, half expecting to see a ghostly figure lurking in the shadows. The thrill of fear mingled with the warmth of the fire, creating a deliciously eerie sensation. The story eventually ended, and as the night grew late, Lisa's eyes grew heavy. The adrenaline from the ghost story began to fade, replaced by a comforting drowsiness. The fire had burned down to glowing embers, casting a soft, warm glow over the campsite. The sounds of the forest seemed to lull her into a peaceful state, and she felt a deep sense of contentment. "I'm going to bed," she announced, walking to her tent. Her friends bid her goodnight, their voices gentle and reassuring. The path to her tent was dimly lit by the moonlight filtering through the trees, and the cool night air was refreshing against her skin. She felt a sense of accomplishment, having braved her first night in the wilderness. The woods around her were dark and silent, a cold wind brushing her face as she hurried into her sleeping bag. Inside the tent, she felt a sense of security, the thin fabric providing a barrier between her and the vast, mysterious forest. She snuggled into her sleeping bag, the warmth enveloping her as she listened to the soothing sounds of nature. The gentle rustling of leaves and the distant calls of nocturnal animals became a lullaby, and she drifted off to sleep with a smile on her face, dreaming of the adventures that awaited her in the days to come. Lisa woke suddenly, sensing something amiss. The night was eerily quiet and the campfire had died out. To her dismay, the other tents were nowhere to be seen. Her heart pounding, she called out, "Jake? Maria?" But only silence greeted her. Climbing out of her tent, Lisa found the moon obscured by clouds, deepening the darkness of the woods. Fear gripped her as she started walking, hoping to find her friends. Each tree loomed like a monster. Every shadow seemed to stir. Then, at the edge of the trees, she saw it, a tall, white figure that seemed to float above the ground. As it turned towards her, Lisa's breath caught in her throat, terror rooting her to the spot. She screamed. Panicked, Lisa ran blindly through the forest. Branches whipped her face and thorns tore at her clothes as she fled from the ghostly figure. Eventually, exhaustion overcame her, and she collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath. When she looked around, the trees were gnarled and strange, the air thick with fog. Lisa realized she was lost, utterly alone. Tears streamed down her face as the oppressive silence of the forest enveloped her. Feeling watched, she forced herself to stand. She had to keep moving, had to find her way out, but the woods seemed endless, stretching on into the fog. As the sun began to set, the woods grew darker, and strange shapes moved in the shadows. Lisa heard whispers on the wind. They were soft and cold, seeming to call her name. She put her hands over her ears, but she couldn't block out the whispers. Stumbling over a log, Lisa fell to the ground. Lying there, too scared to move, she felt something cold and wet touch her hand. She screamed and scrambled back. It was only a spider web. But Lisa was terrified, lost, alone, and surrounded by unseen dangers. She wanted to go home. She wanted her mom and dad. Night fell, and the woods were pitch black. Lisa could see nothing, but she could hear everything. Twigs snapped, leaves rustled. Something was moving out there in the darkness. Her heart pounded in her chest. Then she saw them. Strange, flickering lights dancing between the trees, blue, green, and yellow, moving as if they were alive. Lisa watched, mesmerized and terrified. The lights came closer. She didn't know what to do. Should she run? Should she hide? The lights seemed to be swirling around her now. Lisa closed her eyes, waiting for whatever was going to happen. Lisa opened her eyes. The lights were gone. The sun was starting to rise, and she felt a surge of hope. She was still alive. She could still get out of this. She just had to find her way back to the campsite. Lisa started walking for hours. The woods looked familiar, but she couldn't find the campsite. She was so tired. Her legs ached, her head throbbed, but she had to keep going. Stumbling and falling, she couldn't get up. Lying there on the cold ground, utterly defeated, the woods were silent. Even the whispers were gone. Lisa closed her eyes. She had given up hope. The morning sun filtered through the trees. Birds sang, squirrels chattered. It was a beautiful day. A group of hikers were enjoying the fresh air. Then they saw her. Lisa lay on the ground, her eyes closed, her face pale. She looked like she was sleeping, but she wasn't sleeping. Lisa was dead. One of the hikers gasped. There was something written on Lisa's arm, in blood. It was a single word, help. But it was too late for help. Lisa was gone. The woods had claimed